In this video I'm going to show you how I actually use ball chain and also beads in a mosaic. And I went down to the post office box and I received some ball chain, which was really great timing. And in it was this beautiful iridized ball chain. Now this came from a company called Merlin Mosaica. And I'll put a link down the bottom of the screen here that if you want to go to their website, you can go there and buy some. And I have made a few videos using their products before. However, I thought this was a great opportunity to use the ball chain and also some beads that I already have in stock. So what I'm going to do is I made this bird a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago even, using some epoxy clay and just using it with creating three-dimensional pieces. So I thought what I'll do is I'll take this opportunity to actually put some ball chain in as well as some beads and kind of like finish it off. I wasn't planning to do anything with this, but seeing I've got this and I've got these here, I thought why not? So anyway, what I'll do is I will clear this area and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I actually use the ball chain and beads in my mosaics. Just before I clear the table, I thought I would take all the ball chain out of the plastic bags because we need to take them out if we're going to be using some of them. And I must say they look really impressive. So what I thought I'd do is I'll just quickly run through with what I have here before I get into the mosaic. Now this one was already out of the plastic bag because I removed it earlier, and this is a 6mm iridized ball chain, and I must say it is absolutely stunning, and this would certainly add bling and colour to any mosaic. This one here is a black ball chain. This one here is an oval ball chain, and quite delicate too, I must say. This would be really good to use with jewellery in a mosaic, but that's quite beautiful. This one here is also iridized, and this is a smaller version of this one, and to be honest I think they'd both look good together. This one here is a rectangular ball chain, but it also has round balls in it as well, and this is quite a beautiful piece too. This one here is a gold tone ball chain, and you know these are all different sizes and they probably come in different sizes as well. I'm not quite sure about that, but definitely these are different sizes. And this one here is an a rectangular ball chain with round balls in it as well. And this is a smaller version of that one there. This one here is kind of a chrome silver type plated ball chain. This one here is a gold tone ball chain, and this is rectangular pieces with round balls in as well, and this is a larger version of that but in a different colour. And then you come to this one, which is very beautiful as well, and this is a rose gold, and I haven't seen this rose gold in a ball chain before, but then I haven't seen a number of these that are here now in a ball chain before either. So at the time of filming, this wasn't available on the website, but it probably will be available by the time this video is released. But this is quite a beautiful piece, it really is. Now all these are made from 304 stainless steel. And 304 stainless steel is used in kitchen equipment as well as many other things, and it's resistant to corrosion, oxidization, and is quite durable. So there you go, a bit of a rundown. So anyway, let's clear this area and get straight into the mosaic. Okay, when I'm using any of the epoxy clays, I like to make sure I have long gloves on. I like to make sure that I have a long sleeve jumper on, and I like the gloves to come up over the jumper. I also like to wear glasses, and I like to do it in a well-ventilated room. Now, I generally do mix epoxy clays outside, and I'm just going to show you how I mix them, and then I will finish mixing them outside. So I just undo the lids. I keep them in the plastic bags. Even when I put the lids back on, they stay in the plastic bags. And we're looking for equal parts A and B. And we don't want to mix a lot up all at once because you only have a certain amount of working time for any of these. So we're going to mix up a fairly small batch. And we're looking for equal parts A and equal parts B. And you can measure these if you're not too good at using to eyeball them. You can measure them, but I generally just eyeball because I find that I have fairly good eyesight, and just tested recently actually, and I just eyeball it. But by all means, if you're uncomfortable with that or you're new to it, yep, that's pretty well perfect, then definitely weigh it, because you have to be fairly accurate. So we'll put those aside, and all we do is we mix these up. And what we want to do is, because they're two different colours, it creates a marbling effect when we begin to mix them. So once it's fully mixed, then all, or pretty well most of that marbling will just all blend in together, which is really what you're after. You don't want to have, you don't really want to have that marbling still in there where you can easily see it. Like, you know, you wouldn't say that's ready now. I have my epoxy clay all mixed up, and as you can see, there's no marbling in it, which is really good. Now all I'm going to do is just get a little piece of it and roll into like a sausage shape. Like that. And we're just going to put it where we want to put the ball chain or the bead, whatever we're going to be using. I'm going to be starting off with the ball chain first, and I think I'll use the iridized one, the large one. And all I'm going to do is just embed that into the epoxy sculpt. Now, you'll notice that with the ball chain, you've got the balls and like a dash, ball, dash, the links. So what I like to do is actually push those close together. I just think that looks really better. That's what I like, but that is just a personal preference. So it's dependent on what you like to do. So that's all we do. And then when it comes to the other link, we get our pair of little cutters. I know my hand's in the way. And that's all we do with that. Now, you'll notice that you're going to have epoxy sculpt or epoxy clay, depending on what you're using, on the edges. So what we want to do is now scrape that away. When you were pushing your beads or your ball chain into it, you're not pushing it down to the substrate. You're embedding it, but you're not pushing it down. You still need to have the epoxy clay underneath the ball chain or the bead. And then what we do is we're going with a tool of some type. I use this, but I've also used knitting needles, metal knitting needles, and they really, really work well, and they're so cheap. You can pick them up at thrift stores, op shops, and they're like 20 cents each. Last you probably 6 months to a year, and then you can just get a new metal one. So they're also quite cheap to do. And all we're going to do is we're going to just scrape some of that away. And you probably can't see that because my hand is in the way. But that's all we're going to do is just scrape it, because what we're looking at is we want to make sure that when we embed, or when we want to put some tessera next door to it, it can butt right up to it. If we were to leave the epoxy clay out here, when it goes rock hard, then you won't be able to go right up against your tessera. And then when it comes to the side here, we just need to clean this up here a little bit too. Just scrape it and clean it up. What you don't want to do is scrape the epoxy clay from underneath the ball chain. You're just scraping it vertically away from it, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Now the other thing I like to do, and I haven't got any here right now, is I like to have some rag with some water on it and wipe the beads or the ball chain as I go, because when you've got gloves on, the epoxy sculpt or the epoxy clay will have a residue, and that will get on your hands, and then when you're sticking this down, that residue goes on to the tessera. That will be enough. And then we then just put that down in there to create a line. And you do only have a certain amount of time to use this. But I've already done a video on creating how I got to this bird. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a link up the top here somewhere, and that will take you directly to it. And that gives you more information about the epoxy clays. because I really don't want to go into that when I've already created a video on it. And all we do is we just push it down. We get the ball chain. And we start at this end like we did before. Pushing the ball chain together, if that's the effect you want. Like I said before, you may not want that effect. You might want them to be, you know, with that link showing. That's fine as well. It's just personal preference. But what I do like about the epoxy clays is that you're not using glue for beads that roll around, or for you know, whether it's beads or whether it's ball chain. And I'll just continue to mix up some more. And when this cures, it cures rock hard. And you certainly don't want to mix up big batches of this either, because you only have a certain period of time to work with this, and it can still feel sticky, but it won't be as sticky as when it's fresh. So small batches is always good. And I know my hands are probably getting in the way. I'm sorry about that. I will turn it around so that you can hopefully see it a bit easier. So before you leave your project, you really need to make sure everything is in place where you want it. Because if it's not, by tomorrow morning, you won't be moving it. And I like to make sure everything is just right. I need a bit more there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue on around with this ball chain, and then we'll come back, because I don't think you really want to see me just doing this when you can see how I've done it. And I have to clean up those sides as I go. So we'll be back shortly. I finished adding all the iridized ball chain on the outside. I've wiped everything down with a wet rag as well. And also, if you've been handling any existing tessera with your gloves, you need to also wipe that down because of the epoxy clay residue. Otherwise, you'll get a film on that as well. Now, I'm thinking about adding now some beads, some of these pearl beads, and I'm thinking about sort of going around the inside edge there. So I think I might look at doing that, and we'll see how we go with that. So what I'll do is I will prepare the epoxy clay, and then we'll come back and start adding these beads as well. And I've got some other interesting things I think I might add to it. And like most of the projects I'm doing, I'm winging it. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, but either way, it should be quite interesting. I'm just doing the same thing. I've mixed the epoxy sculpt. I'm going to roll it into a sausage shape. And then I'm going to start up this end. Yes, this end. So I'll turn that around and I'll start in here. And again, I hope my hand and fingers don't get in the way. And I'm just going to there. Now I think what I might do is actually do the other side as well, because the beads will go close to each other here. So I might as well just do that. And any epoxy sculpt that I don't need in that line, I can just scoop out. So now we'll get the beads and we'll put that in here. And because I've got this edge to work with, this will be a lot quicker, because I won't have to worry about making sure that it doesn't go over this edge here and making sure it's vertical, whereas this I won't have to worry about at all. Okay, so now I need my scissors, and I might actually see if I can squeeze those beads in underneath that. I don't know whether I can, but I'll just put a bit of epoxy clay underneath there. And we might be able to push those beads down, which will just make it a little bit neater. And we still need to be careful that we don't knock these beads either, because the epoxy clay has not properly set yet. It's still going to be quite a number of hours. So that should work okay. So I'm actually going to now cut that thread off here and pull this cord out of the bead. Now, I can leave that cord in, but I might as well pull it out if I can. Okay, so we'll get that in there, pull that cord out. Okay, I pulled it out too early, but that's fine. We now just have to get these and push them in, which is going to be a little bit more difficult, but doable. There you go, one. Okay, so that'll be fine. So now I do this side. And because these are smaller beads, I'm actually building it up slightly. But it's again personal preference as to how you want your piece to look. It's better. Put that up a bit more. Remember when I said before that this will move faster? Well, you just don't know. That's better. That's got it. That's got it now. Okay, I need to mix up some more of this into a sausage shape. I'll get that and lay that back. And I'll take that right down to that end there. And I like to have my beads right up close to each other, like the rhinestone, like the ball chain. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, while that's connected, which I probably should have done on this side as well, is scoop away that excess epoxy clay. Like I said earlier, I like to do it as I go. We all get into our own routines on what we like to do. And I'll just maneuver over this side and get rid of that excess clay as well. I can leave it a bit longer. It'll still come out without a problem, but I just like to do it as I go, because I'm really concerned about having the clay in there and then the phone ringing and I go to answer it and I forget about it and I come back and there's this big blob of epoxy clay and you can't do anything about it except maybe chip it away or grind it away. It's that hard. So we're just getting rid of all that. And then when I've done this bit, I will continue on and we'll come back. Because again, like before, I'm sure you don't want to watch me just do this, what I've done earlier, repetitively. Okay, and then I'll just pull that thread out of there. Done. Now on to the next stage. What I'm looking at doing is actually filling the areas up with some crockery that I have here, and I think the colours will work really well. It's kind of like a blue and purple. So I think I'll end up and do that. and I've got my epoxy clay all ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I have my mask here, and because I'm going to be cutting up crockery, I'm going to be putting on my P2 mask, or you can use an N95 mask to help protect ourselves from the silica dust that comes up from cutting crockery. So I'll start doing that. While I've got my mask on, I won't be talking, or at least I don't think I will be, and we'll see how we go. So I'll pop this on now, and I need to turn this around, and we'll see how we go. So now it's just a matter of cutting the crockery to fit. Okay. That will be fine. I like to just do a couple of pieces. Sometimes I put the epoxy clay down as I go, but in other cases I will do a couple of pieces first to make sure that fitting is right. It just depends on what I'm actually doing. I'll finish all the rest off, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. All I need to do now is just cover this area here with some blue tack, and that will help stop the grout from getting in where I don't want it to go. So I'm just going to peel the blue tack off, and this is great because when I use it on my pieces it doesn't leave any residue, and we just open it up a little bit so it's reasonably thin but not real thin, and then we just push it into the areas where we don't want the grout to go. So pushing it in around the bead there. And you know, if you do happen to get some grout in where you don't want it, it is fairly easy to clean up, but this will just save a lot of hassle on the smaller items where I definitely don't want the grout to go. Try and keep my hands out of the way, so there you go, and just bend that around. And it really is great stuff, I find, for this. And I find this product, Blue Tack, works a lot better than the Sally's Easy Tack, but that's a personal preference. I just find this works better for me, so just keep that in mind. This is Bostik Blue Tack, but Sally's have one called Easy Tack. Okay, that's about it. Now we can get in there and grout. I've let my grout slake, so I'm just giving it a little bit of a mix. And now we'll pop it on. And then what I like to do is just rub it in. Now, I'm not rubbing hard because I have got ball chain here, and I still need to be careful. So I'm really just rubbing it in, but not pushing hard down. And you don't have to grout. This piece or your pieces. It's just grouting does help to bring it all together, but it does depend on the nature of the beast, as we say. Push it all into those grout lines. That's probably about it. So I'll take off the excess grout. That's about all I can get off at this point in time. So we'll be back shortly. It's been around 15 minutes. Now I'm going to go in with a very wrung out cloth, and I'm just going to now wipe carefully all the excess grout off. It's really just to loosen it, and we'll just keep rinsing that out. Now again, because I'm using ball chain and I'm using jewellery, I don't want to be pushing hard in those areas. And then what I'm going to do is let this haze over again, and then I'll come back in for almost the final cleanup. Now I'll let this haze over again, and then I'll do another clean on it. And now I'm going to go in with a dry rag, and I may still use a damp rag as well to clean up, but basically I'm going to be using a dry rag now. And I'm just going in now, getting rid of all that excess grout still. We've got some grout in here, just clean that away. And I'm not too concerned about this edge around here because we can sand that and we can then paint it black or whatever colour, or you may want to mosaic it. But if I was doing this in a mosaic, as far as that edge goes, I would have done that first rather than doing the top part first, because then you get an edge, a really nice edge on it. Otherwise, if you do it now, you'll have a grout line all the way across here on the top, where normally the grout line would be on the side here. But again, that's personal preference. This is where it takes a bit of time to do this. But that's what I'm going to be doing. So rather than just go through all this once again, we can then come back when it's completely finished and I'll show you what it looks like. Well, there you go. I think the birds turned out really well, especially for a sample piece that was used in another video and was never meant to be finished or see the light of day. I think it looks really quite good. Now, I have added some broken jewellery around the top here with some rhinestones in it around the edge there, and a very large rhinestone there. Now, I don't know whether the camera is picking up on how sparkly that is, but certainly there's a lot of sparkle in it, and it's certainly going to add a bit of bling or more bling to this piece. Now, I've also painted the sides black, and I've also painted the back and also put a bit of a design on it. Now, how I did this, I will put a link up the top of the screen here, which will take you to a video that I created. Now, once you've reached the end of that video, it doesn't explain this particular part. So all I did was I just gave it a light sand, and then I gave it a light coat of black satin paint. And with what's in that video and what I did, it creates this really subtle effect, which I really like. And I know it's on the back, but even the back of mosaics should look really good because people do turn them over and have a look. So anyway, I hope this video has helped you. I hope you've taken something away from it. I hope it explains how I use ball chain and also beads in my pieces, and also how I grout them. So if you have any comments, put them down in the bottom of the comments section, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy.